What's up, witches? It's me, Luna, and I'm here for a little something different today. My channel is I look at it as sort of call and response, and when you guys comment on videos, it prompts me to do something. If you comment on a deck, it will prompt me to take that deck off the shelf and use it. And if you ask a question in particular, of course, I'm going to get on and answer it. So this was a comment by Blue Sky 2648. And they commented on one of my Art of Ritual videos, which is on a playlist about spirit. And they ask, your videos help me so much to learn. Thank you. How do I connect with my guides? Is there a ritual for connecting with my guides? And then I was stunned to discover that I have not done a video on your spirit guides. What's up with that? So I'm going to fix that today. And I want to start by introducing you to a book and reading a quote from that book. The book is, let's see here, Companions in Spirit by Leigh, Maggie Garfield, and Jack Grant. This is probably the third copy I've bought of this book, because over the years somebody would start talking to me about things and I would lend it to them and not get it back, and then I'd buy it again. So I've circulated this book. I bought this back in the 80s, like 86, 87. There is another video on the Storytime playlist called The Woman in the White Kimono, and I think it's the only video on the Storytime list that will give you like much more background, personal background on where I was at when I was, discovering things and stuff, so I won't go into that now. But I want to read the opening quote. There we go. It is always a signal when I hit the record button for somebody to text me or call me or something. Okay, so here is the quote. Believe nothing on the faith of traditions, even though they have been held in honor for many generations and in diverse places. Do not believe a thing because many people speak of it. Do not believe on the faith of the sages of the past. Do not believe what you yourself have imagined, persuading yourself that a God inspires you. Believe nothing on the sole authority of your masters or priests. After examination, believe what you yourself have tested and found to be reasonable, and conform your conduct thereto. And that quote is from Gautama Buddha. So I so appreciate that quote opens this book, because we are going into territory where you absolutely must ground yourself in your own experience, validate your own experience. There is no objective treatise on, the objective reality of guides, because they don't have an objective reality. Perhaps they do, but your relationship with them is going to be based in subjective reality. So connecting with your guides at its core is training in trust. Trusting, number one, your own intuition and your own experience, and trusting, learning how to trust your interpretation of your own experiences. And in that journey, there can be a lot of unlearning to happen. For instance, let's imagine that you've been taught that black cats are bad luck, and then you suddenly start exploring your witch side and discover that that's not true. There's a reason that superstition was created. So, it's a learning process over time. What I want to start with here is by saying that, well, first of all of this video is going to be based in my experience, but so you have to test yours against it and validate yourself, even if it goes completely against what I'm saying. Just do that for yourself. And now I short-circuited myself and forgot the end of the sentence that I started a minute ago. But it is my belief. Now I remember. And this could be a long haul. You guys make yourself a cup of something nice and sit back, okay? It is my belief that we all have guides. I absolutely believe in the interconnectedness of everything in the universe, and that, there's not like this earthly reality and then a separate reality. It is all part of the one. this earthly reality and the reality in the spiritual realm differ in a couple of key ways. In physical reality, we have some things that don't exist in spirit. We have time, doesn't exist in spirit. All times exist at once. But when we exist in a body, the material has to conform to the laws of the universe, and those are laws of growing and decaying. There's that cycle of physical growth, death, rebirth, all of that. So we have time, we have past, present, future, we have memory. I got to think for a second. The point being here that there is what can feel like a disconnect between this physical world and the spiritual side of things, where time and space do not exist, where we are working in a quantum field. We tend to look at this physical reality as more of Newtonian, physics even, but quantum is the rule of the spiritual side. It's actually the rule everywhere, but our lived experience in the physical realm can kind of take us away from realizing that. So the challenge that we have is to cross that barrier, and we need to understand a word about belief systems. So to work with your guides, you have to step into the belief system that they exist as a thing, right? And then do your exploring from there. So when we are in the belief system that guides exist and we can communicate with them, we encounter a thing that kind of feels like it separates us. We're in physical reality, they're not. We have vocal cords and can make words and stuff, and they can't. We have a physical appearance and a personality. They don't. Okay, so we have a couple of challenges there. And it's up to us to take the steps. We must open ourselves to them. We must approach them, because one of the rules, and again, we are in the realm of Luna's belief system, so test it against your own, good judgment. But, and damn it, I short-circuited myself again. I did take my ADHD meds. Shh. Anyhow, I'll just keep rambling and we'll see where we get to. Let's go back to when I was a kid and my first experience with guides, and that was having my name called. From the time I was a little tiny kid, and it would be a male voice, very monotone, and it would come from like the center of the room, waking me out of a dream. It was always waking me out of a dream. It didn't occur in the dream, it occurred outside, and I heard it with my physical ears. And I would hear this voice just go, Lisa. And, well, as I was a kid and a teenager, it was always, well, that's my dad. And it would make me go looking for him. And sometimes he wasn't there, but it was always like, oh, that was my dad. Not so easy to do when I was living by myself for the first time in my apartment on my own and wakened up with that voice. And then it became, and I mean, I would have that kind of sitting up and sitting there going, what the fuck was that? And then just sort of setting it aside. No, we're not ready to deal with that. I'm going to set that aside. But it started occurring to me that this was happening, and it wasn't my dad because he lived in Florida. So moving along, now I'm to the point that I was going to make before. Things really started to unfold when I began to meditate on a daily basis. And I want to say this loud and clear. Every witch, whether you're a baby witch, an advanced witch, a crone, a high priestess, whatever, there is something that we absolutely must do if we want to be a fully realized witch, and that is meditate in some form or another. It's very tempting, when you watch witch talk and stuff, to just go, oh, just do this spell, do this spell, and put these things together and there, the spell is done. which kind of just hops over the core of the reality of magic, which is that it happens in here. And if you really want to connect with your guides, you've got to start by connecting with yourself, because ultimately this is where you're going to find them. And to, kind of connect with them as something that seems to be an external reality, we again have to approach them. How we do this is through our practice and our intention. So what do I mean by meditation? Any number of things. Sitting and, navel gazing, contemplating a flower, just sitting meditation like Zazen, where you're grappling with your monkey mind. My favorites, and the ones that opened it all up for me, and I will tell you specifically, the tape was Shakti Gawain, Creative Visualization. I did it every single day, and it was, as usual, about 3 weeks in or so that everything started kicking off. And her meditation, it is, deep relaxation. Put some headphones on or play it in the room or whatever, but you're visualizing your inner sanctuary. You're visualizing connecting with your guides. You're doing the work internally. Other recordings that I now absolutely adore are by Kelly Howell, and these are called binaural beat recordings. And you want to look for ones with theta, which is deep relaxation or trance state. My current favorite is theta and gamma. I think it's called Pure Focus, but it's just music. It's not a guided visualization, but she does have guided imagery ones too that are excellent. Living Prayer is a wonderful one if you want to connect with your guides. Retrieve Your Destiny is another really good one for like dumping the old shit that is in the way of you meeting your guides. But the thing is, you've got to be the one to approach, because in my belief system, there is a rule, and this is something that is acknowledged pretty much across the board with anybody that you read or speak to about guides. That is, they are not allowed to intervene unless they're asked, or unless it is a situation of extremity, like a situation of life and death. So they just kind of sit around twiddling their thumbs, waiting for you to wake up and say, hey, give me some help here, right? So when I was living by myself and starting to hear that voice and then starting to meditate, one of the first guides I met was that woman in the white kimono, and I don't think I'll say anything more about her until later. You can watch that story. But I became aware of some presences, and I was, at the time, my life was just insane. I had at least 3 things going on, and I was constantly just running, short sleep, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, all that kind of stuff, just whew. And I was constantly locking my keys in my car, locking myself out of my apartment, all that kind of stuff, losing things. I would just lose my keys. And so I started doing a thing where I'd be in a rush, I couldn't find something, and I'd be frantically looking, and then I would stop and just say, somebody help me out here. And then I'd go do something else, and within usually a couple of minutes, I would end up, in the course of doing something else, going straight to the thing I was looking for. So I became aware of this presence, kind of here on my left side, female. And along with that came the male presence, which, made sense because of that male voice I'd heard all of my life. So I just sort of started working with these presences of, somebody help me out here. Hey, thanks for being there, And what I was doing, I now realize, is giving them the opportunity to show themselves. When you ask for help, you are giving them the opportunity to help. And they go, hey, she's given us a job, and they step in and do their very best. There's so much to talk about, and this is going to be so disorganized, but one of the things that is important to do when you start to reach out to them, and that could be like the very first thing of just reaching out and saying every day, thank you for being here. Okay, whatever you do first thing in the morning, I do believe it's important to have a first morning ritual, however brief, because it gets you started from an integrated place rather than a fragmented place. So starting out by just I know you're there. I'm grateful that you're there. And I invite you to guide me today. I invite you to guide me. Now, you don't want to just open a blanket invitation to spirit to, hey, come on in and fuck around in my life, right? You want your own genuine guides. So, of course, when you are doing things that are encountering, and when you talk with your guides, you're going to do it from your protected space. And if you've watched my live streams or any of my, my prayer circles or things that I did, there's a great meditation. You can even find it on my Mother Drum playlist. There's the grounding and running energy, where you send a root down in, run it through your body, you make this sphere around you that is a protection and a shield, and nothing can come in there but that which is there to benefit you and belongs to you. So from within that space is when you're going to ask for your guides to come. But starting with just gratitude. I know you're there. I appreciate you being there, and I appreciate your help, right? And then see what happens. As you go along, you can be a little more specific as to how you would like them to interact with you. And you can do, little kind of sort of inconsequential things like, here's how you can show me you're there. Here's a symbol that means a lot to me. I want to see a heads up penny, or, a bird feather, or a cardinal outside my window, or something. You can give them something that will facilitate the communication, right? Because they are going to conform themselves to what you are able to receive. So here, let's also talk about your particular psychic gifts. Where are your sensitivities? Oh, did I just do that? I just did. Never mind. What are your sensitivities? I am clairaudient. I am, yes, clairvoyant, internally clairvoyant. I don't see things with my, physical eyes, but I see them in my mind. I've got a lot of the clairs. I'm clairsmelliant. What do they call it? I don't know, through my senses, sense of touch. So they are going to take advantage of your sensitivities. And as it's true that they can't really intervene unless they're asked, it's also true that they need to respect your boundaries. Like I said, unless it's a matter of life or death. So you tell them in the beginning how you want to interact. My first thing was always, I don't want to be scared. Don't scare me. You may be startled by your guides. They can do things that just make you go, what the fuck? I could hear things, and hearing is my strongest, I believe. Things like, sitting and doing some chant and prayer and feeling wings, like hearing and feeling the wind of wings fluttering next to my ear. Speech that you hear with your physical ears, or speech that you hear in your mind. So many different ways that they can communicate to you. But you tell them, if you don't want to see them with your physical eyes, say that. Here's what I'm most comfortable with. Please don't scare me. And I will say here too that you can tell when something is not your guide if it comes with fear. If there's an entity that's presenting itself to you as a guide, or maybe you're asking for a guide and something shows up that makes you feel fearful, that is not a friend of yours. All right? That is not a guide. Your true guides will never, ever make you fearful of them. They might instill, or you might feel fear like approaching a particular situation, and that might be a guide helping you see this is a place you don't want to go. But the guide themselves will never cause you to feel fear. So as time went along, and the particular question about really wanting to know more about their guides and is there a ritual to do it. As time went along, several, maybe 5 years went by, and I decided that I really wanted to know more about these two guides. In the meantime, I had had some dreams, visions, not dreams, visions, where I was really there, and met another one who he's something else, and I recognize him now as like my big central guide. I call him the Master Sculptor, and I saw him in a gray robe and long gray hair, kind of Gandalf-y, no hat though. And it is his voice that used to call me when I was a child. But when I did the ritual, I was looking for these two, that were with me all the time. And so I was used to doing ritual at that point. So is there a ritual to meet your guides? Do your ritual. You should, as a witch, have a process of getting into your safe space, of getting your guards up, of creating a space that can magnify whatever energy you raise and keep anything negative out, and all that. So you want to do that. You want to get into your safe space. And then it's just a matter of getting yourself settled and quiet and open, knowing that in your safe space nothing bad can come in because you're powerful, and you set the rules. And then just say, I would like to know more about you. Can you please show me, tell me, but I would like to know more about you. And then you can just kind of let it go. You can spend time hanging out in that space. Sometimes you get information right away, but go in with the idea that it might not be right away, and it may unfold in a matter of hours, in a matter of days, whatever. It may show up in dreams, anything like that. When I did it, being clairaudient and asking specifically, I asked specifically for their names, and I've always been pretty good at hearing names, and I didn't expect anything. And before I even ended the question in my mind, I would like to know your name, Ingrid Lloyd. I got these two names like ba-boom together. And I remember thinking, oh, I had to have made those up. But then it's like, Ingrid and Lloyd, where would that come from? So the next key is validate. If the information comes, accept it. If you're going to just kick out everything that comes and disbelieve it, are your guides going to be likely to communicate with you? Really? Probably not. So don't make them work hard to get past your inner gatekeeper. Come from a place of trust and belief in them, and that they will give you answers when you ask for them. So whatever names come, validate that. What came with that was images for me, and I actually had the images of them like sort of appearing before I got the names. The names just sort of validated that too. The image of Ingrid as this short, portly, very German, bohemian-looking woman with the big braids, the Sao Pauli girl kind of thing. And Lloyd as one of these like Elizabethan dudes with the hat with the points that came up and the big bellied thing with the stripes and the tights, But I soon came to know also that he is an actor, and that is a role that he played. Now, as time went along, around that same time, there was a cloth that I had hanging on my wall, and it was a Thai bleach that a friend of mine did that I then dyed, and I would keep it hanging on the wall. And a friend of mine was sitting there once, she also a witch, we were initiated together, and she looked at it and said, "You have a samurai there." And I'm like, "What?" And she showed me on the red place that there was this samurai, like with the helmet, the eyes. It was very, very interesting. I'm like, okay. And then Around that same time as well, I was doing readings every week at a restaurant with a couple other readers. And when we would have a slow night, we'd sit and do readings for each other. And there was this one woman, Eileen Berman, bless you if you're not on this planet anymore, bless you if you are or if you aren't. And she was reading for me, and she said, "You have a samurai warrior." And it's like, okay, yeah. And then she also told me about another one who was a woman. She saw her from like the 20s or 30s with she's like long blonde hair coming down here, and one of those gowns that looks like they were dipped in it and it's liquid and just, and it's like, okay. And on the way home, I asked for their names, and I got Jessica for the woman, and for the man I got like a faux Japanish mishmash of syllables. Not knowing anything of Japanese at the time, I went, okay. Now I realize that is not a Japanese name at all. So I have been kind of looking for, and not knowing Japanese, did my ear hear them correctly? So I've been kind of working with him and asking him to clarify his name for me, please. And, the nearest I can get, if I take the syllables I heard and try to push them into actual Japanese, there's something about like death raining from above, which makes sense for a samurai. So, but I want a better name to know him by. So this kind of brings me, so now I had these four, and actually these five with the master sculptor. And as time went on, I began to realize that each of these guides took up a place in one of the cardinal directions. And it made so much sense. Ingrid was in the north. She rules over the physical. She's the one that helps me find stuff that I've lost. She's the one that helps me with healing and anything in the physical realm. Lloyd is in the east. And I mean, he's an actor, so he's about words and communication, and he can help me when I need to navigate that airy realm. My samurai is in the south. Fire. Makes so much sense. And also because of that Japanese blade, and I put the blade in the south with fire because it's forged in fire. So, that's where he is. Jessica is in the west, in the watery realm, just the way she looks. And of course, my master sculptor is overall. And I do have a couple others that have come in since. So these are my personal guides. This is my personal team, right? And I learned that over time, guides can change their appearance. Because they don't have a physical appearance. So they can change things and update themselves for what you need right then, to give you an example, to give you some guidance in that way. And my big experience with this is with Jessica. Several years later, when I was going through a divorce and having a very bad time because my Epstein-Barr was just cranking. I didn't know what was wrong with me. Suddenly a single mom of a 1.5-year-old baby, and just on my own with no support. I mean, there was nobody around me. But anyway, horribly depressed, trying to raise my baby and keep her shielded from that depression, which, not my babies. They're way too perceptive. But anyway, I was lying on the couch one afternoon, and this has happened to me frequently in my life, where, mid-afternoon you have kind of a hormonal dip. Around 2:30, 3 o'clock or so, get really sleepy. My eyes would be crossing. Lie down on the couch and immediately go into that liminal space, which is theta, into that liminal, not awake, not asleep place. And I would have this experience of like somebody was tuning a radio dial. Little fragments of things. You're not quite being able to catch them. And all of a sudden, from the middle of the room, with my physical ears, I heard a woman's voice go, "Peekaboo!" And I mean, and so immediately, but at the time, because I was doing ritual every single day, I was living in a place where I had a dedicated temple room with a fireplace, and it was amazing. And so I was enough accustomed to the magical realm that I didn't like sit up and go, oh, what was that? I heard it, and I immediately said, if you are here for my highest good, welcome. I also kept my house buttoned up pretty tight, so things that weren't there for me couldn't get in. So I wasn't alarmed that it was, somebody that didn't belong there. And I just said, I would like to know more about you. If you're here for my highest good, welcome, and I'd like to know more about you. Lots of interesting, odd things happened around that time, and I started seeing things with my physical eyes. One that I actually asked for, and that was my master sculptor, who I had a candle that lit itself during ritual. I was lighting my quarter candles. It was the solstice, summer solstice. Might have been winter. I think it was winter. And I had, sconces and candles all around this, my temple room. And so I would start, in the north and light the candles all the way around, ending with the altar candles. Lit the goddess candle, lit the god candle, blew out my lighter candle, and then turned and looked at the god candle. I looked directly at the wick, and it was not lit. And I went, ah, crap. Either it didn't take, I forgot to light that. Turned around, grabbed a match to light my lighter candle, and when I turned around again, the candle was burning. So it's like, okay. So it was the God candle, and I said to my master sculptor, you know what? I would like to see you with my waking eyes. I would like to see you with my physical eyes. I know you're there, but I'd like to experience this. So I go to bed that night, and my daughter's crib was in the room with me across the room, and she would start the night there, and then she'd wake up in the middle of the night. I'd take her in my bed to nurse her and go back to sleep. So I'm sleeping, and I hear her wake up, and I sit up, and he is standing next to my bed holding her. And I went, oh, okay. And I reached out to take her from him, and suddenly everything shifted, and I was really in my body fully, and of course he wasn't there. So I was in that liminal space again, accessing the ethereal realm, and I saw him with my physical eyes. And he was also telling me that he is not just my personal guide, but he is a guide over me and my children. So he told me, I've got her, and that was a wonderful thing to know. As far as the peekaboo, this is where I learned how they can change their appearance and they can morph, because I was in desperate need of fun and humor and lightness in my life. I did a meditation, and it's like, tell me who this is that came to visit me, and it turned out it was Jessica. And the information that I got is that she was now a flapper. So, she was in the 20s and that traditional woman, and the flapper craze back then were young women. It was young women just saying, we're not doing this anymore, cutting their hair short. That was unheard of. Wearing bobbed hair and these little cloche hats and the, dresses, and dancing the Charleston. I mean, these dresses that showed their lower legs, and scandalous and fun. During the Prohibition era, so they were drinking, they were smoking cigarettes, they were going nuts. So Jessica had now transformed into a flapper, and she now called herself Peekaboo Jazz. Instead of Jessica, it was Jazz, and it was Peekaboo Jazz. And I thought that was so adorable. And she was appearing to me in that guise during that time to say, it's okay for you to laugh. It's okay for you to have some fun. Please get yourself some fun, Now I see her as her long-haired self again. But it was really interesting to me to see, pardon me, to have that information come to me in that form. Let's see what else I can talk about here. So, So I have my guide that is stationed around the wheel. And for me, that works because the elemental wheel is the paradigm that I hang everything on as a pagan and as a witch. If you, whatever other practice you do, Your guides will fit themselves into your paradigm. I think it's kind of rare that a guide might show up, for instance, me being a pagan, that a guide would show up like as a nun or something. Unless maybe you are into a practice that is not really healthy for you and they're trying to guide you to a different one. For me, and I'm doubting what I just said for me personally, because I became a Catholic for a while, and like Saint Bernadette was really important to me. So, there are exceptions to that. But it all just make it make sense to you. If there's something that doesn't make sense or you don't understand, like if a guide shows up as a Sufi and you don't know anything about Sufism, I would explore. Take it as an invitation to explore. And, this goes for the universe and your guides. Overall, as far as growing spiritually and being on the spiritual path, my overall rule is when you take a step towards your own enlightenment, the universe will meet you instantly and more than halfway. The same goes for your guides. When you take steps towards them, you will find them absolutely overjoyed that you're doing it, and they will meet you. They will meet you, wherever you're able to receive them. But the caveat is you have to believe in yourself. You have to believe in yourself. You have to believe in your own intuition, in the information that you're receiving, and that can be a hard one when you're first starting out. It's important to journal when you're doing these explorations. Yes, write things down. Write down the information you get, even if it doesn't make sense. And if you can't make sense of something in the moment, keep it in your journal and revisit. Because you can get information from your guides that is them like planting seeds that don't have any context to grow in at the time. But years later, you can look back and go, oh my God, kind of like the woman in the white kimono. So I'll say a little bit more about her. That was an encounter with, yes, a guide, but that guide was me. That guide was my higher ethereal self. And I didn't know such a thing existed at the time. And it was shocking. There was, a little thrill of fear with it if you go watch the story, but it wasn't like genuine fear. It was just like, wait, something different is going on here, And the initial encounter caused such a feeling of bliss and ecstasy that, that little thrill of fear was just, it was more excitement than anything else. But yes, it is possible to meet yourself and meet your own higher vibration and be guided by your own higher vibration, So this book, the first thing this book did was tell me that I wasn't crazy for having my name called, because I was absolutely sure that I was. And I'm trying to think, by the time I got I hadn't been to actual therapy by the time I got this book. I'd been to a psychologist back in my 20s, but it wasn't therapy. But I used to think about, one of the things you don't ever tell your therapist if you're a psychic is that you hear voices. Unless you know your therapist and you know that they're hip to these kind of things. Because that could get you in trouble and diagnosed with things that are just horrible. So I just kind of had that open question of, am I crazy? I'm hearing voices, am I crazy? And this book talked about ways that your guides can present to you and talked about having your name called. And that was such a massive relief and such a validation of my gifts that it was worth the price of admission just for that nugget of information. What's wonderful about this book too is that it will take you through beginner steps of connecting with yourself. It talks about auras and chakras. It takes you through grounding and meditation. It takes you through meeting your guides, and they outline hierarchies of guides and the varieties of guides. So you've got the guides I'm talking about is like my spirit team, but you have your ancestral guides as well. You have ancestors that you knew while they were here on this earth, and you have ancestors that you didn't know. They are part of your team as well. Then there are the big ones, archangels, big spirit guides that have never been incarnate. They've never been in a body, and they are guides over, bunches and bunches of people, or even all of us. So this book is going to give you a lot more information. Let me read you the chapters. We have Open Secrets, Auras and Chakras, Grounding and Meditation, Meeting Your Guide, and the subs on that are Lifetime Guides or Guardian Angels, another name for them. Other personal guides, guides for the day, guides for single attributes, guides for traumatic moments, mythological guides, totem animals, and family guides. So they can step in, like I talked about life and death. They don't need your permission when something's life and death. And you will hear many, many stories about people having terrible accidents and somebody coming and taking care of them. And then when help got there, people saying, no, there wasn't anybody else here. There are guides that can step in for the moment. You can ask for a guide, like you're finishing your graduate degree. Can I have, is there a particular guide? But ask. The main thing is ask. Let's see, guides for the day, blah, blah, blah. So guides for the day, you might look at, where the moon is and all that kind of stuff. Mythological, totem animals. So animals, yes, your guides could be all animals. Absolutely. And one of the things that can help you discover these things is your explorations with decks. So like if you have, I had the medicine cards way back when, like the first animal deck there was. And that put those archetypes in my head, what those animals stand for. And that also, either they can be your guides, or that becomes a way that your guides can communicate with you by sending you animal encounters. They can use those for messages. Exploring oracles and tarot helps you to program symbols into your mind that, again, your guides can use to communicate with you. The more you do on your end, the easier it is for them. So do your work, and if you're diligent, and if you come with an open heart and an open mind, and a willingness to set aside your gatekeeper, you're going to learn an awful lot. There are great decks that you can use, looking guides. I leave you to explore on your own. This is already 42 minutes long, so I'm going to let it go. Anyway, Blue Sky, let me know if this helped you at all. And if it helped anybody else, please comment below. I will talk to you soon, probably on an unboxing or a live stream. Until then, this is Luna, and I bless your efforts to connect with your guides. I promise you, every sincere step you take is going to result in some incredible experiences, and I'd love to hear about them. All right, till I see you next time, blessed be.